All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about limiting factors and carrying capacity. So, this is a real quick thing, but let's just go ahead and hit on some of these big points. Let's suppose we had a situation where we had two mice, and those two mice produce the very typical 56 pups or baby mice every single year. And then we run into this situation where two of those mice produce 56 babies every single year. Well, we'd run into a situation where we have a lot of mice and the population would be out of control. Every single year, every two babies producing 56 more, it would be a ton of mice. And so we run into this problem where that can't happen. It cannot happen. It's impossible for this situation to happen. And that's all because of this thing called limiting factors. And limiting factors are this either abiotic or this biotic thing that restricts the number of individuals in a population. So whether this is the amount of space or the amount of food, or maybe some of the weather conditions, or maybe there's disease that rolls through, or it's just a matter of, well, there's some other competitors that compete for food, or maybe there's other predators, or there's predators for that specific species for these mice that are just there to limit the population. So as the mice get too big, there's plenty of food for those predators to eat. So we run into these things that are just called limiting factors, or these things that put restrictions on the amount of organisms that an environment can hold. Okay, and so we've seen this already in a situation where we've talked about the wolves and the elk, about how there's a relationship between predator and prey, so that as the population of elk would increase, the wolves would be slightly behind that. So we see this relationship here. Check out the difference between the snowshoe hare and the lynx. Notice that when the lynx population is up high, the snowshoe hare population is low. That's because there's too many lynx, there's too much hunting going on, and so it doesn't allow. But once the lynx population starts to die off, you'll notice that the snowshoe hare population starts to increase. And this happens over and over and over based on what's happening in the environment. So as the lynx die off because there's not enough food for them, that allows the population of snowshoe hare to go back up. And when that happens, you see this increase in lynx. And once the increase in lynx happens, the snowshoe hare population dies off, and then the lynx follows. And once the lynx follows, the snowshoe hare population goes back up, with the lynx following it. So you guys can see there's a very clear relationship going on there. Now, this all has to do with something that we like to call carrying capacity, or the maximum amount of individuals that a species or of a species that an ecosystem can hold. So I like to use this picture of these fish as an example, because if you had a small fish tank like this, the ideal maybe would be three, something like that. But if you were to just go ahead, you can't put as many fish in there as you want because there's no room. So the limiting factor for this situation would be space. The carrying capacity of this fish tank is not as big as many fish as you want to put in there, because the fish would be too crammed. They wouldn't be able to get enough nutrients. If you were to put food in there, they wouldn't be able to get enough food. So there is a carrying capacity in here of a few fish, and the limiting factor on that would just be space. Okay, so if we're going to just kind of wrap this thing up already, if we just kind of sum this up, it's very easy. All we have to do is talk about two things. One, limiting factors. There are certain things in a population, or that limit the population of organisms. There are certain factors that limit those populations. So whether it's weather or disease or predators, competition, food, space, these other factors, they can limit the amount of individuals in a population. And on top of that, there is also a carrying capacity, which is a maximum amount of organisms that can fit into a certain space. Okay, guys, hopefully this was helpful. If you need more help or you don't understand these two terms, these two important ideas from this unit, just go ahead and ask. I will be available to take any of your questions. All right, thanks, guys.